Welcome, Jeff. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Rory, nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Great. I'll just give a very brief introduction for those who don't know Jeff. I guess to our UX audience, probably very well known, the author of the book Lean UX, which I think it's pretty much a staple for anybody in UX these days, or definitely getting into UX. But actually, what we're going to talk about today is showing it off in the background as well. Um, what we're going to talk today is your new book, Forever Employable, because as Frank said, it is interesting times right now. um, Perfect on the branding.
I'm
It,
here.
it, it's interesting times because unfortunately what we're starting to see is the ramifications of the coronavirus rippling through, and job security isn't what it was a year or two ago. So it's quite fortuitous that you have this book and willing to share your ideas with us. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And for what it's worth, I didn't plan the virus, the launch of the book. It wasn't me. That's all I'll say.
That's good to know. Good to
Yeah.
know. Um, I'm going to start with, I think of it as quite a controversial quote. In your book, you're describing your early career, and it sounds like everything's great. It sounds like you're in a very good place. And then you described yourself as saying your career wasn't future proofed, it was future screwed. So, can you explain that and where that came from?
Yeah, look, the realization was this is at least that was my perception. And it was really the motivating force for me to change what I was doing. But look, 35 years old when I was 35, everything was good. I'd been working professionally for a decade at that point. I was the director of user experience at a high growth startup in New York City. Married, house, two kids, cars, the American dream, as they say, right? And what I realized that day that I turned 35, and the kind of the genesis of that quote is that the further up the corporate ladder that I climbed, the fewer opportunities they were. And this is particularly true in design and user experience. It's even more painful, like that funnel gets super narrow as you go further up. And the likelihood of me continuing to win uh, jobs that were slightly better paying, slightly more responsibility, slightly higher in influence was going to decrease significantly, exponentially. In fact, that was my belief. And finally, what I was seeing was as I was hiring designers, I was seeing designers coming in who were better than me, faster than me, new tools that I didn't know, um, and they were cheaper than me by a lot. And so I really didn't feel like, despite having done a decade's worth of what everyone tells you is the right thing to do in your career, I didn't feel like I'd future proofed my career. In fact, I'd done exactly what I was told to do, and I'd climbed to a point. You get to director of UX, where do you go from there? There aren't that many places. There aren't that many places to go in most organizations. You could be VP of design. Maybe if you're lucky, there's a chief design or chief experience officer job, but those are super rare. And so I'd kind of what it felt like is I'd backed myself into a bit of a corner, and I needed to figure out what to do because I had to provide for my family. I wasn't done working 10 years ago.
Great. So you have this epiphany, you have this or kind of a fear awakening. So what happened?
Well, so I realized that the dynamic that I've been working in is it needed to change fundamentally, right? And like back then, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't thinking about it from a systems thinking perspective. I've gotten into that more kind of in the subsequent decade or so. But generally speaking, right, it's traditional career um, process, career growth it's a push process. You push yourself into the marketplace. You push yourself into opportunities. You chase these opportunities in the hopes that other people will then, accept you for an interview, accept you for a position, agree to talk to you, that type of thing. So you're placing all of that responsibility, all of the dependence on the success of your career on other people. For me, that was unacceptable. So I had to turn that to be 180 degrees and create a pull system. A pull system is where I am continuously attracting opportunities towards me with the activities that I'm doing by myself. So it puts me back in control of my career. And by creating a content platform and sharing out what I know and what I do and what I've learned and that type of thing, I am creating these constant pulls on the sort of the tech ecosystem, and then opportunities are coming towards me. So fundamentally changing the dynamic 180 degrees, right? Into one where I attract opportunities towards me, and it puts me in control of it, which is where I wanted to be, right? I realized that if I was going to leave myself in the hands of others, that was going to be an increasingly losing game. That's what I thought.
Great. No, it's interesting kind of mindset shift. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. So just touching on that, so you said kind of you started blogging and putting stuff out there. You mentioned in the book that people should come up with a flag and find their flag. What do you mean by a flag, and how do people find it?
Yeah, so the first step that I talk about in the book is planting your flag, and that flag is the foundation for your thought leadership, for your recognized expertise, for the reputation that you're trying to build. So the question is, what do you want to be known for? And it's a question that focuses on your experience, your expertise, your passions, and I would argue the current marketplace, the needs of the world, the needs of the marketplace or the industry. Really thinking through what it is like. Where do you want to stake your claim, right? So jokingly, I was doing this earlier, right? But I planted my flag on Lean UX, right? And I did that because it's the work that I was doing. It's a problem that I was solving that other people had. I had actual experience doing the work, so I could share what we were doing on a regular basis, and lots of people were asking for this kind of content. Nobody else, like lots of people were asking. Very few people were actually providing anything in the way of answers, at least back in 2008, 2009. And so it's where you want to kind of build that foundation on top of, and what do you want to be known for.
And how do people like so? It's great, or it's a challenge for a lot of people. So I look at you, for example, and go, okay, you've got this wealth of knowledge in UX, but as a kind of one of our attendees or a regular person, where do you find your flag? Where do you find out what you want to be known as or
Yeah, I
known
mean,
for?
look, but so first of all, I didn't have that 20 years ago, and I had significantly less of it 10, 12 years ago, right? So that knowledge and that experience, that expertise comes with time, and it comes with doing the work, and it comes with practicing the craft and that type of thing. I think that if you're just starting out and you're looking to decide where to plant your flag, I think you need to look at your unique situation and decide what element of it you want to talk about. So for example, you could talk about my first year as a UX designer, right? If you're just setting out, tell that story, right? A lot of people are having their first year as a UX designer. There are even more people in UX schools and boot camps and programs that are going to be having their first year very soon, right? And you're going to tell that story in the midst of a pandemic as well, which is the world they're going to get into as well. So there's an opportunity there, right? You might want to say, look, okay, I don't have a ton of experience, but I've spent the first 2-3 years of my career in financial services. So I'm really going to focus on UX design for financial services, mobile apps, for example, whatever it is, right? Like, I mean, I thought about this the other day, which it feels kind of ridiculous, but I'm sure you remember this. I think it was the first Rosenfeld Media book, 20 years ago, whatever it was. It was Luke Wroblewski's book on form design, right?
Very niche.
He wrote a whole book on just designing forms, right? And granted, he's expanded his flag over the years since then, but he planted his flag on designing forms, right? It's what he was good at. It's what he knew, he had experience in. And the book was wildly successful too, because basically the internet's a bunch of forums. So, so that worked well. So really looking at like, what do you know right now? What experience have you had up until this point, or what experience are you about to have that you can talk through? Right? If you just came out of a UX program, for example, or whether it's a degree program or a career shift program or a boot camp or whatever it is, you could talk about that. My experience completing a 12-week UX boot camp, my experience in a 2-year career school, whatever it is, um, and talk about that experience and then how you're applying it day to day now in your first year as a UX designer. So I think there's a ton of opportunities, and what you'll find is as you start to tell that story, you're going to see spikes, right? You're going to see spikes in reaction to certain types of content, and those are hints about where to focus next, kind of where to take that next pivot or that next turn.
Great. So, kind of going down this path, like let's say you've planted your flag. Um, what recommendations do you have for people? I guess I'm coming at it from a time perspective, and I'm going to look at my personal situation. I've got the UXDX. My daughter was born a few months ago. I don't have a hell of a lot of free time at the moment. So, what are your recommendations? Because this sounds like it's do your day job, but then also your night job.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Um, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you and be like, no, no, Rory, that's not at all. That's what it is. It's a hustle, and it's time consuming. It is absolutely time consuming. So when I started doing this, um, so 2008 roughly, situation was not too dissimilar from yours. I had two daughters. One was 5 and the other was 1, and I was working full time in New York City, living in New Jersey, commuting 90 minutes each way every day, working 50, 60 hours a week, and then trying to maintain, some kind of work life coexistence at some point. Um, and the work that I was doing to plant my flag and to start to really kind of build this content platform it was done in the cracks, in the cracks. So, if I'm standing on the train platform waiting for the train to come and I have 10 minutes, maybe I could fire off a couple of tweets or write down some ideas. I have 45 minutes on the train every day, headphones on, laptop open, as many words as you can get done between, my train station and Hoboken, which is, where I had to stop. And on the way home, sometimes getting up early on the weekends before everybody wakes up. Look, an infant's not bad. I mean, if you're kind of stuck, walking around with the infant in the middle of the night and they fall asleep on you, right? You kind of don't want to put them down because you're going to wake them up. Sit on the couch, see if you can get a laptop on while they're sleeping on your shoulder. But the point is that you've got to find the time and the motivation to do this. And this is why I think, it's interesting. Like sometimes I read the stuff in Forever Employable, and it really strikes me as common sense. And a lot of folks have said, yeah, this is really, it's good stuff, but I feel like, this is common sense. And it is. The difference, though, is that many people lack the motivation to implement common sense. And so this is a competitive advantage for you if you have that motivation, right? And yeah, it's going to be tough and it's going to be tiring, but the goal is that eventually, right, eventually the mix of time is lucrative, and like you're generating enough income or opportunities or whatever it is from building the platform that you can actually dedicate more time away from other employment opportunities for it as well. So, but it's a balance, and it's a hustle for sure.
Okay, great. Just making sure I need to figure out. So good tip on holding the baby and trying to write with one hand. um, so just coming back to the kind of the writing, one thing that I've suffered from in the past as well, and I know it's a lot of other people, kind of an imposter syndrome. It's not perfect. I need to do more research. I can't publish it just yet. Do you ever suffer from that, or do you ever kind of look back on some of your previous writing and wonder what you were thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I suffer from it about once an hour. So it's fascinating. So Forever Employable launched about 4 months ago now, June 16th, and I remember the morning of the launch, I was terrified. I've been working for a couple of years. Everything was like edited and re-edited and confirmed and designed and ready to go and quality tested and checked. And I was terrified. I was like, man, no one's going to read this, or they're going to hate it, or they're just going to, and it happens again and again and again. The thing is, here's the thing. The thing is, I don't know how you get over that. I think you just keep publishing. You just keep writing. You get better. Because the more that you do it, the better that you get at it. The better you get at storytelling, the better you get at conveying your ideas, the better you get at connecting with an audience. And if you maintain some kind of a pace or a cadence over months or years, you will absolutely notice an improvement, and you will absolutely notice an increase in the quality of the kind of connections and conversations that you have. I mean, I'll tell you a story that Lean UX first edition was written, the final manuscript was turned in December of 2012. That's when the final manuscript for Lean UX first edition was turned in. It was published in March of 13, and in 2016, we were given the opportunity to write the second edition. To do that, we had to go back and read the first edition. It had been a while, I'm not going to lie to you. I sit there and read Lean UX every day. And I went back to read the first edition after not having read it for a while, and I was mortified. I was really mortified, like really just embarrassed. I cannot believe they published this thing,
I think it holds up pretty well. I think you're being harsh.
No, but from my perspective, right, like my writing has become so much better.
Yeah.
Right, between 2012 and 2016, that I was like, oh my God, I have to fix this. And I to kind of finish out the story, Josh Seidman and I just signed on with O'Reilly to write the third edition of Lean UX. And in the last couple of months, we've had to do it again. We have to go back and read the second edition and figure it out. And I'll tell you, I didn't want to puke this time around. Certainly there's things to update and improve and to make the third edition valuable, but the writing was significantly better than what I was expecting based on my first experience. But it happens all the time, and the only thing you do is practice and get better at it. That's it.
Great. So in addition to writing, you advocate teaching, and getting out there and kind of teach. I guess writing in a way is teaching, but is everybody a teacher? Is this a viable path for everybody? And can everybody become a teacher? What are your thoughts on that?
So the saying is something like, if you want to get good at something, then you should teach it. I think that every time that you share your expertise, you're teaching. Now that may not be your explicit job title. It may not be the name of the activity that you're taking part in, but if you're coaching someone at work, if you're just looking over someone's shoulder and offering some advice, if you're writing something for the corporate blog or for your own blog, if you're putting together a video for a conference, if you're a guest on a podcast or you host your own podcast, any one of those activities is a teaching activity. Can everybody do it? Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason why anybody can't do it. Will everybody do it? No, not everybody will do it. But it is a fantastic way to exercise the ideas from where you planted your flag. And so to really get a sense of how to convey something meaningfully to an audience, teaching it is a great way to do it. And again, a blog post is teaching. And then really kind of getting a sense of how people are reacting to it. What questions are they asking? Are they reacting to it? Right? I've written things that I thought were pretty good and gotten zero reaction. And so the question is the idea bad, or did I just not teach it correctly? Is there a better angle on this? It's interesting, like and it's about recognizing which aspects of the content resonate best, and then adjusting your teaching tactics to highlight those bits that people are actually paying attention for. Like for example, right? I teach a lot of Lean UX courses. In fact, I just finished an online course last night. One of the main reasons people come to the class is to talk about how to do dual track agile, right? So how to do discovery and delivery together. I know that that's a big part of that conversation because over the years, Every time I talk about that, the traffic spikes, the comments spike, the inbound communication spike. And so for me, it's valuable for me to have those conversations, and I focus a lot of my teaching on that, a lot of the conversations that I'm having. And I think that you can do that too for your practice or whatever, or the stories that you're telling. You look for those signals and then you amplify your activities around those signals. What the best channel or medium is for that, I don't know. That's a kind of a test and learn, sense and respond type of activity. But I do believe everybody can do this. But again, I don't think everybody will.
Yeah, and it leaves opportunities for those who do.
Absolutely.
So that kind of touches on to one of the last big points in your book, is that so you planted your flag, you've become an expert in an area you're writing. You then say, give it all away. If you give it all away, you're not getting anything back. So what do you mean by that, and why do you advocate giving it all away?
Yeah, so you are getting a ton back. It's just that it's not an immediate exchange, right? It's not a commercial exchange right away where you're saying, I will give you expertise and you will give me money, and that's great, and that's consulting, right? Or just kind of full-time work, and that's fine, right? But what I mean when I say give it all away is, I mean to generously and freely share your expertise with the industry and with the domain and with your discipline and with the audience that you're trying to build, because that immediately makes you valuable to that community and immediately associates you with that content. When people need to think about something related to that content, they find you. When they need to hire somebody to help them with that at work, they find you. And so giving your articles away, your blog posts, your podcasts, creates that content marketing engine. And that drives inbound leads to you. That's exactly why you give this all away. Because ultimately, I mean, look, eventually you might want to sell the content, right? It's tough to do initially if you don't have an audience. So by giving it all away, you're building an audience, you're building a network, you're building a reputation. And then on top of that, you can start to sell products or services. Now, that might be your freelance time or your consulting or coaching services. It might be a book. It might be speaking engagements. It might be uh, other kinds of coaching and training. There's a variety, or it might be the actual content itself. At some point, you might say, look, okay, I've been giving away my content for 4 or 5 years. From this point forward, there's going to be a paywall for it. That's okay, right? So, but initially, to build that audience, that network, and that reputation, giving it all away is the key. That's how people get to know you. That's how you build your audience.
And do you have any tips? Because there's often a little bit of a fear as well with people when they start writing, that you're kind of screaming into the void.
Yeah.
So you're putting all this effort in, you're putting all this kind of time and research, and you're writing, and you're preparing podcasts, etc., and you're just getting nothing, and nobody's picking it up. So how do you, aside from just the creation, how do you manage the marketing and trying to build that audience?
So this is where being UX people is an advantage that many people don't have, because we know how to do customer discovery. We know that launching a successful product or service or a piece of content needs an audience. So we're going to design that piece of content with an audience in mind. We're going to research that audience. We're going to have a target reader persona. For every one of my books, there's been a target reader persona, and we have gone out and met those folks and talked to them in advance of writing anything. Same kind of thing here. If there is a specific, you should have a target persona, right, for your audience, or a set of personas, and go research those folks. And you know how to do this. Ask them, where do you consume this kind of information? What format do you prefer? Well, when people used to commute, you'd be like, oh, podcast's my favorite because I could just listen to it while I'm commuting, right? These days, you might say, look, you know what I can stand, because I'm on Zoom calls all day? I can stand like 3-minute videos. Right, so give me 3-minute video chunks on YouTube, or give me 500 words on Medium, and I'll get it done. So do that customer discovery work and get a sense of what your target audience likes, what they consume, how they consume it, and then start testing with content in that format.
Great. So we've kind of gone through how you're advocating it. When did you kind of make the leap then? If away from a kind of your day job and your side hustle into this becoming your full-time career, and how do people know when to make that leap?
My story is interesting. So I left my last full-time in-house job in January of 2012. Now I left to start an agency with Josh Seiden and Giff Constable. The way that we were going to generate work for that agency was content marketing. And so that ended up being the work that I was doing inside that agency. And I was building off of all the Lean UX stuff I had done already at that point. 2000, Josh and I were already talking about Lean UX at that point. And what I was, what ended up happening was that the content marketing became a business unto itself inside the confines of this agency. And so over the course of the 4-year life cycle of the agency, not only was I generating leads for the business with my little content and education business, but I was actually generating revenue. And so within, I had the comfort and the luxury of a paycheck from that business every 2 weeks while I was learning how to build, now really how to scale it. Because by 2012, I've been doing it for a bunch of years, right? But now it was about how to scale it and how to build a real business around it, so that when that agency ended, it was sold in November of 2015, I was just able to kind of pick up my little business unit and take it out and just change the logo on the outside, and from Neo to Jeff Got Health, and continue building it. For me, at that point, I had had 3 solid years of proof that this was a viable business. I knew how to sell it. I knew how to deliver it. I knew how much money it made, and I knew it was sustainable enough for me to become self-employed. And so and then since then, I've managed to maintain that. So it's been 5 years now since that happened, plus the 3 years before. So it's been 8 years of proving this out. Remember, like, that's me transitioning eventually towards self-employment, right? You don't have to transition towards self-employment. You might just want to create this kind of platform that ensures that you get the next full-time job very easily. The next full-time job opportunity finds you as well. And you can do that while maintaining your full-time employment, but continuing to do this kind of work that generates speaking opportunities and content opportunities. And eventually people are like, that guy Rory, I really like what he's putting out there. Maybe we need him on our staff rather than.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just going to take a question that's come in from the audience. In particular, so you talk about that kind of content marketing engine. How has writing a book helped versus the book format versus just the kind of the online content?
Life changing. So that's been my experience. Now, Lean UX was a success. So if we start with Lean UX, which was my first book, absolutely life changing, because Lean UX succeeded and became a global conversation. The book clearly continues to sell. We're writing a 3rd edition, and it has, as a lead generation tool, I haven't had its equal in my career. All the books have done that. All the books help with that. All the books do that. It's amazing that to this day, books still have that kind of impact and influence. Now, look, there's a ton of books out there, and there's lots and lots of books being published every day. And so simply writing the book is not enough. You've got to market the book. You've got to talk about it. You've got to let people know that it exists. You've got to keep reminding people that it's a thing. And, as someone, I run a publishing house, Sense and Respond Press. Josh Seiden and I have been running this for years now. We've got about a dozen books published over the last 2 or 3 years. And I can tell you that the authors that market their books sell books, and those books generate opportunities for them. The authors that do not market their books, generally speaking, do not sell books. And so the book doesn't work as well for them. So you have to create it, and then you have to use it as a tool in your content marketing.
Great. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the questions coming in. I'm just going to ask you actually just your personal experiences then of what has this enabled you in your life versus, let's say you had continued down the track of the permanent employee versus this kind of different career path. So from your perspective, what has it enabled you?
So I live in Barcelona. and I have the option to live here. I chose to live here, right? We as a family decided to make this move, and building this platform has enabled that because because I'm self-employed and because of that platform, the opportunities that I get are global. And so I didn't really need to be anywhere. I just needed to be somewhere near an airport, a decent airport, and have good internet. And for me, that is, that's the most important thing that it buys me. It buys me the freedom of choice, and it buys me time, right? And I think that that is the most important things in life, frankly, because I, and it's hard being somebody self-employed and mildly ambitious as I am, because it's tough to draw the line about when to stop working and when to divide that time. But you do have the option, right? Like for example, if after this I just look, I'm done for the day, just want to go to the park or get on my bike or whatever it is, I can do that. And so the benefits of that are, they're immeasurable, right? It's measurable in quality of life, and that to me is worth everything.
It,
All the hustle, all the early mornings, all the late nights, all of it's worth it.
yeah, I'm very jealous when I see you posting your mountain biking pics around Barcelona, in the hills of Barcelona.
Yeah.
So is there any, I'm just having a quick um, look at the questions. Is there anything else coming in from anybody? No, don't think so at the moment. But is there any kind of final tips that you would recommend to people? So obviously, apart from go out and buy the book Forever Employable, which
Yeah.
everybody should do, any tips for people who are, I guess now, just given the time it is, maybe there isn't as much job security as there used to be.
Look, the book is super tactical, right? There's a story in there. It's my story. There's some other stories in there, but the book is super practical and super tactical. And if there's any like immediate bit of advice that I would tell you is is to to figure out where to plant your flags, so choose a topic and just start writing, or start communicating that in whatever way is most comfortable for you. You'll get better. You'll figure it out. It'll feel awkward. There's the tyranny of the blank page, right? It's going to stare you in the face when you fire up that Google Doc or whatever it is, and you're going to stare at it like, what am I going to write? Right? But just put something down, and you get something to react to, and then start shipping stuff. Eventually, you throw enough stuff against the wall, some of it's going to stick, and you're going to figure it out. So don't hesitate to do this, um, and the sooner the better, basically.
Just on that, like the metaphor there, throwing enough stuff against the wall, should people really just start introspecting and kind of going, okay, what, as you were saying, I work in finance, or I have experienced my first year, just write about their personal experiences? Or should they start with doing some research first, just simple things like keyword analysis, or anything like that, just to see, okay, what are people already searching for? So
I mean, look, I think it's important to pay attention to the trends in your discipline, the trends in the market, the trends in the world, right? If you want to start writing about how to host a great live event at the moment, I would argue it's bad timing, right? You might argue no one else is doing it, and so this is a great time to do it, right? But generally speaking, right, paying attention to where's the discipline headed, right? What are people worried about? What are the real problems people are facing? Look, the reason Lean UX resonated so much is because everybody was struggling with UX and Agile, and still do to this day, sadly, um, despite Lean UX, right? And so, what are people struggling with today? What are you hearing from your colleagues in the UX field? What's everybody saying? Right? What are those trends? That's a great place to start and a great place to begin talking about from your experience.
great. And just got time for one last question that's just come in. What forums do you think people should create content for? So there's LinkedIn, Medium, Twitter, podcast. Where would you recommend to start?
LinkedIn and Medium. I think LinkedIn's been kind of transformed with Twitter being sort of the burning garbage fire that it's been for so long now. It's a little sad. The community's still there, and you can still engage the community, but then like in between community engagements, it's like, oh, the world is ending, democracy is dying, like all this kind of stuff is in between there. Um, LinkedIn at the moment is free of a lot of that. It's really focused on work stuff, professional stuff. And I've had a lot of luck there lately with building and engaging an audience. So I would definitely start there. And I like Medium for distribution. Now remember, with Medium and LinkedIn, you're renting an audience. You don't own that audience. LinkedIn does. So but it's a good place to start. And then eventually start transitioning them over. If you start to build them up, transitioning them over into your blog or your content or wherever you're hosting that kind of stuff. But that's me. I think podcasting requires a level of commitment and consistency that is tough to maintain. I haven't been able to pull it off consistently. That's what I like. Those are the two that I like.
Great. Well, thanks very much for your time, Jeff.